I realized in that moment that there is something drastic that had to change, right? Like I was either going to fizzle out and like I wasn't going to make it, or I could make a decision to do something that made me feel a little bit better and better every single day. And that was kind of the start of my journey of like getting a little bit healthier and happier every day. And I do think this is a really long process. Every day, just doing something that makes you feel better.
Hi, and welcome to Your Selling Podcast. I'm your host, Nikki Kirk, aka Your Selling Guide. In 2017, I quit a steady corporate desk job to travel the US in an RV. Along the way, I started selling on Amazon, grew multiple successful businesses, and wound up back to my roots as a small town girl. Today, I'm still doing what I love, selling on Amazon and helping other sellers start and grow their own online businesses. Each week on Your Selling Podcast, we will cover different aspects of selling online and highlight other sellers just like you and I. From part-time sellers creating extra income on the side to full-time sellers growing million-dollar businesses. Think of this as a sit-down with your Amazon bestie where we can learn and grow our online businesses together. Welcome to Your Selling Podcast. Hey crew, and welcome back. On today's episode, I'm really excited to introduce you to Heath Armstrong. Now, Heath, like a lot of entrepreneurs, started at a very young age, and he used Amazon as a gateway to creating his own brand and a lot of different companies. I fully enjoyed this episode and getting to know him and just realizing how much alike everyone out there in the world really is. But with all of that, let's just jump into the podcast and hear from Heath. Well, welcome, Heath, to the podcast. I'm really excited to chat with you because we have a lot of things in common, actually.
Yeah, apparently. We just had a pre-roll conversation and there's a lot of synchronicity. So it's cool. Good to be here.
Yeah. I was really excited when you reached out, and then even more so when I realized like you lived in a van or live in a van, and you just like, wow, we've really done kind of the same things. And I know you started your entrepreneurship very young. So tell us about that and then how you got into online selling.
Yeah, we do. We are in a house for momentarily, but have been living out of the van. And I've been pretty location independent since 2016, which was the year I left my job to do full-time entrepreneur work. So that's a cool journey. When I was a little kid, my mom was addicted to garage sales. So I got to like follow her to those things, which is funny because you never know as a child where that might lead or what kind of seed it might plant. But I had some good instances of finding things, and then eBay was coming up at that time too. So I'm 37. And when I was a child, eBay was like, it was getting started. And I think at our age back then, if we had the opportunity to get on a computer, our brains really picked it up quite quickly. So I started building little websites and I made my first website when I was like 11. It was just pictures of like memes, which is funny because now memes are like the whole internet. And back then it was just like a funny picture. It was the same thing, but it was like you could find them by digging deep through weird, creepy chat rooms or like finding links. AOL.com. It was a completely different thing. But I figured out how to like make these little websites that had multiple images on it and then post them all over chat rooms or whatever. See the reactions of people. So it's interesting. But yeah, I started buying stuff at garage sales, selling them on eBay, making money when I was really young. And then I stopped for a long time. I got into my teenage years and, drugs, alcohol, girls, school, just went really down that path of what everybody else was doing. And I spent a good 10 years in that. And it was a really hard place to be because when you're in it, it's fun. It's like, oh, but you don't ever really think long-term, what does this mean for like real happiness, health? What are my true core values in life and where do I want to go? And 2011, I woke up face down with my pants down in my garage, and the door was open. I say face down, pants down. The garage door was open and there was blood all over the place. So like my nose had been bleeding. It was probably around 11 o'clock a.m. on a Sunday. And my car was running in the front yard. It was literally not in the driveway. It was parked in the middle of the front yard in the middle of this neighborhood. It's pretty embarrassing. It was running. I could smell the gas fumes and I had no recollection of what I'd done for the previous 48 hours. So I realized in that moment that there is something drastic that had to change, right? Like I was either going to fizzle out and like I wasn't going to make it, or I could make a decision to do something that made me feel a little bit better and better every single day. And that was kind of the start of my journey of like getting a little bit healthier and happier every day. And I do think this is a really long process. Every day, just doing something that makes you feel better, you know, in like a real way. And because I do think life isn't really about what happens to you. It's not about the beauty or the bullshit. It's about how you choose to respond when it happens. And so I did that, and I started just like in that grit. Oddly enough, I started a podcast because 2013, now that I'm thinking about it, I started podcasting. It was kind of just coming up then. Podcasting was getting a little bit big, but I met a couple really interesting people in life that encouraged me to do something that was really scary. And the scariest thing for me was to reach out to other people and ask them for help. And I think that's hard for a lot of us. And the idea came up of like, well, what if you interviewed people to ask them for help and then shared it with other people to help them as well? And like, that was kind of, there was no real big vision for it. It was just like, okay, I can commit to doing this one thing. And it was wild. I mean, that just blew things open for me. I had a Hollywood director on as like the second episode. And I did that for probably 150 episodes. But what was interesting about it was the whole time I was learning about what all of these really successful and creative people were doing to be healthy and successful and creative. And then I was able to take all of those things and put it into a daily routine, a morning and evening practice that really completely blew open my life and changed everything. And off the back of that, I got into all of this other e-commerce and online selling and creative projects. And it's just been a really wild journey. So it's in a nutshell, it's kind of how it happened.
Wow. That's crazy. That's awesome that you like realized like, okay, this is bad. The direction I'm going is bad. And we're able to kind of pivot. And yeah, it doesn't happen overnight at all, but it's just one day and you just make a change. I am all about, I know we talked about this before the podcast, but like being outside or just being in nature. And I think we get stuck in this like rut of, you know, office work or whatever it is we're doing and forget to just like go outside, look around, like just like
drink clean water.
Yeah.
Sit around a fire and look each other in the eyes and say like, this is awesome. And I love you and I can be here. You know, those little things make such a big difference.
Yeah. Is that podcast still out there for people if they want to listen to it?
There are, it's called the Artsy Now Show. It's funny. I go back and listen. I'm like, wow, this is incredible. But my website, heatharmstrong.com, will have links on the About Me page. I think will take you to it. But Hal Elrod was one of the guys I interviewed, and he's an international bestseller of the Miracle Morning Practice. So I implemented that pretty early on, and that like really changed a lot for me. And I've just kind of grown from there. But travel has been, you know, you meet so many different people if you're traveling. I've worked and traveled from about 20 different countries now, and like just falling in love with every different culture, you learn something new. And I really do think it's the greatest form of education. And like, it also helps you overcome all your fears because it destroys everything that you thought was. All of these things, these illusions that you think are your identity, you see really quickly like, oh, that's just something I was taught. That isn't actually me, you know. And you can just pull all the layers away and then start to rebuild yourself in the facet of what you actually think you are and what you want to be. You know, take your core values at the top and then stack your goals and, you know, your actions underneath them to make sure they're in alignment. And it's a pretty foolproof process.
Yeah, we're the same age, so I'm also 37, and I don't know if it's part of being in the 30s or what, but the same thing. I feel like you just like, even everyone's into like social media and all these things, and it can be a very toxic place, but when you meet the same people, it could be the same person you talk to on Facebook, but if you talk to them in real life, like RVers on Facebook are not the nicest, but in real life, they're all amazing. So it just, that person to person connection and just hearing, but you start to unlearn all these things that you thought or you knew. Yeah. And it's just, that's what I feel like I'm in right now, just kind of unlearning a lot of things that, and it's been great. Like, I feel like, and maybe I've also saying, maybe this is just the 30s, but like, I feel like I'm like realizing like what's important in life and who I want to be and what that looks like and all that kind of stuff. So that's very cool.
Yeah. I think it could happen at any phase in life. And I want to know what your birthday is because you're 37. But I think it like wherever you're at, it's perfectly where you're supposed to be, and transitions can happen. All you have to do is like take the vision away from being so big and say like, what's the one thing I can do today to help myself feel a little bit better? And that's usually following your excitement, right? What actually like lights you up. And then just take a note card every single day and write down 2 things you're going to do that's going to take you towards your dream. And I've been doing that for 10 years now, and it has never failed me because it takes away the overwhelm of the massive scope and helps me see like, oh, these are the 2 things that are like the most impactful that I can do today. And everything else kind of falls off to the side because there's a lot of distractions out there, that can resistance like wants you to not create. It wants you to think that this other thing is more important, but it's not. Like you have to show up and be able to, beast through that.
Yeah. My birthday is March 24th. So I'm an Aries. What about you?
June 5th.
Oh, nice.
But we're only 2 months apart, right? So
yeah. So I'll be 38 pretty soon, but for the moment, still 37.
You're 2 months older than me. Cool. I don't really meet that many people that were born my year. As I get older, it's like,
right?
It's always close, but it's like I meet less and less people born in 86.
Yeah.
And I was just in Guatemala at a mushroom cultivation school a couple weeks ago. And there was a girl there who was my age and also born in the same hospital as me.
Wow. That's
so
crazy.
Small world stuff. Like when you travel, all these synchronicities blow open. And we were born in the same hospital in Cincinnati, Ohio, and in the same year. Pretty nuts.
Hey crew, is your Amazon business set up for success this year? Do you know how much profit you really made on the item you just sold? Or what about this? Do you notice when the Amazon FBA fees change on a product in your inventory? These are just some of the reasons why I love Sellerboard and why I've partnered with them on the You're Selling podcast. I have been using Sellerboard for 4 years now, and I absolutely do not know how I will run my business without it. I love how simple Sellerboard is to use. The desktop version is set up so easy. As soon as you connect your Amazon account, all of your products from the past, anything you've ever sold is gonna flow into that. And the way I love it and use it the most is actually when I'm outsourcing. I have Sellerboard app right on my phone, and I can visually see the images of the products I'm selling today, yesterday, last month, last year, whatever I want to look at, I can see it in real time right on my Sellerboard app. Sellerboard is an affordable must-have tool for all Amazon sellers. And as listeners of this podcast, they have given you 2 months free to try it out for yourself. There's absolutely no credit card required to sign up, and you can cancel at any time. Head to yoursellingguide.com/sellerboardprofit to set up your free trial today. Again, yoursellingguide.com/sellerboardprofit to get your 2-month free trial today. That's crazy. Okay, so you travel a lot, you live in your van. Now, how did you get to that point? Like, what allowed you to do that?
Oh, that's a big question. So I guess when I started that first podcast, I was interviewing a lot of people, and one of the people that I interviewed was actually a guy named Jason Berwick, who is my co-founder today. And he was just somebody that we had like Twitter auto DM bots set up or whatever back then, Wild West of Twitter, like where everybody had some like random auto, or, if you're in marketing at all, it was like, let's try this out. And they started talking to each other, and I thought it was funny. So I reached out to him, and then we started talking, and he actually was doing retail arbitrage, and he had just left his job where he was selling bonds, and he was really miserable. And I actually was working in a factory for $13 an hour, making concrete receptacles that carry human feces underground. And so I went to school, and I had an engineering degree, but like 2008 was tough, and like trying to find job placements and things like that's where I found myself. And I was depressed and miserable. And like, I met him as I was getting better, and we were just kind of aligned. And I was interested, I tried to start a couple of different businesses online. I was doing websites for people. I sold a Holiday Inn website for like $8,000, and I was like, yes, this is it. And I quit one of my jobs, and then immediately realized that was dumb to quit the job that quick. Had to get another job in my career field. And I was there for 3 or 4 more years until I could actually get things going on my own. But in that process, Jason, he started showing me retail arbitrage, which is fun. It's kind of like Easter egg hunting, right? And I know you teach a lot of that. And so I did that, and I was like, oh, I think the first thing I bought was like a cheese grater. No, it was a Lego blanket from Target probably. And I resold it on Amazon and was like, oh my gosh, because I'd done some eBay, but like I was like, that was kind of cool. Feels like a much more like robust system. And then I went and bought a couple more and did it again. And it's like, wow, because if you're using the method of listing on listings that already have a lot of traffic, like you don't have to find the audience, which is one of the hardest parts of building any type of business. And I just started like really quickly. I will say, I don't know if someone comes to me and they're like, what's the best way to learn about e-commerce? Like just do RA, like do RA for a couple months. You don't have to do it forever, but like learn metrics of doing something like that, reselling, and then do a little bit of OA. Oh, hit my mic, transfer over into that and learn that system a little bit. Cause then you can build the roadmap of like, or you can build the foundation you need to understand how to actually build out a brand, or to get into like private labeling, or to go farther and do a wholesale thing, or whatever you want to do, or start a boutique, and make it successful. And so yeah, he did that. And like I did RA for a while, and then I started like finding myself, I was in Kentucky and I was like at all these Walmarts scanning shelves, and I was also doing it while working full time, and I burned myself out. I was like, I don't know if this is better than my job, like being here all the time. And so I quit, and I told him like, hey man, you ever figure out how to audit, like how to do this online? Like, let me know. And I went down more of the path of like, okay, I'm going to start writing about all of these things that I've learned from these interviews I've done. And I made a journaling system, and I sold it, and lots of people bought it, and they were using it and reaching out to me and being like, this is so helpful. I quit my job. I worked through all these things. And I still know like some of those conversations changed my life forever, but I got a little hint of what it was like to make a product of my own. And I always wanted to be a writer as a child. So that was really cool. But then he came back to me and was like, hey, I figured it out, and that was when like kind of online arbitrage was birthing into the space, 2014-ish or whatever. And I was able to get with him, and we started looking at it and like using both of our knowledge to figure out a way to make this successful. And like, we really quickly went from having, I was doing no sales when he came back to me again, to doing, 6-figure months within like 18 months, and trying to go down the path of fully automating it. And so I did OA until about 2016. I did it longer than 2016, but when I got to 2016, that was when I was like having so much success with it that I was comfortable enough to leave my job. I sold everything I owned. I moved to Oregon, actually to Walla Walla, Washington first. Had no plan, but I could work from my laptop, and like, it was all, we had a couple of VAs, and it was all automated. We had third-party warehouses rolling, and I was literally able to just kind of like sign on, go through products that our teams were sourcing, and like make certain buys, and then just like check out for the day. And did that for, until probably 2020. I had an issue with Amazon where they, it was when they first started doing what was it that they were doing? Like verification of accounts, not this last wave, but the one before that. And they just like froze my account one day, and God, it was brutal. It was like 28 days, no response. I had like lawyers and all sorts of stuff going on, but I lost so much money in that span. It was one of those times where I was like, okay, they froze it because my credit card was expired or something, but they couldn't tell me what the issue was, and the error wasn't flagging. So it was like, oh my gosh.
That is one of the most frustrating things about selling on Amazon is like, I feel like they don't even know, like, because I had something come up a couple months ago, and I was like, well, tell me what, like, I got, you got the dreaded email, but it wasn't yet on my account, so I couldn't actually see anything. And so I called anyways, and they're like, well, it could be this. And I'm like, you can't tell me like this. You don't even know. It's just, that's one of the, yeah. And it's like, well, if you get shut down, which I did get shut down in my first year, because I didn't know you had to do stuff if you got an IP. I just was like, okay, I'll stop selling it. And then, but like, then I learned, but back then you could actually talk to Amazon, and now it's like really hard. And so I'm always like, it's not the end of the world. It absolutely sucks and is stressful, but it comes down to, like you said, you can hire people who are lawyers and can talk to Amazon, but then you're stuck and they are holding your business hostage in the interim. And that is one of the
Yeah.
most annoying and frustrating things about selling on Amazon.
Yeah, they're a little bit of a mess, but also like I always bring my head back around to how fascinatingly powerful it is too, because of the opportunity that's there. And I really do feel like they're trying to always evolve their system and get a little bit better. And this customer support is better than it was back then. I mean, my account got reinstated and they were like, "Oh, we're sorry," whatever. But it slowed me down enough to actually take a moment and take a deep breath and think like, was it really exciting me anymore? Because like, I always had the dream of building my own products. So it was just this, I looked at it as this like great opportunity for reflection and to make a pivot towards making my own products and stuff. And if you're fully dependent on Amazon as a marketplace, then if something happens there, then it can pull the rug from you completely, which is why I'm so like much of a proponent of diversifying in types of products and marketplaces and different kinds of income streams and things like that. And, so I'm forever grateful. And I think it's just going to get more streamlined. I mean, there's more competition coming out in all these different marketplaces, and Amazon's going to have to, Shopify is incredible to work with when they have customer support. There's different, like, they're going to have to compete with that in some way. And so they have to get better and better and better. And I don't want to promote fear around selling on Amazon, because I think it's one of the greatest things that you can learn if you want to get into, connecting anything that comes out of your head into physical form and then putting it in the hands of other people. There's not a better place to like do that than Amazon. So
is that when you started Rage Create in that kind of time frame?
Yeah, 2018. So you said have you done some crowdfunding?
So when we started Rootless Living magazine, we did a Kickstarter for it.
Nice. Did you have success doing it?
Yeah, we hit our goal. I think our goal was only like $5,000 or something, but we hit our goal.
But that's great.
And it was, yeah.
So I was meditating. So I have a lot of stories I could tell. They're like more in the metaphysical sphere of things, like crazy synchronistic stories of me working with Mayan elders around the world, and wild things. But so in a nutshell, though, I always do my best to follow my curiosity and my intuition. And I was meditating one day, because it's one of those practices that just completely changes my day. I mean, if I do a little bit of breath work in the morning and I just take some time to be silent, it really changes a lot for me throughout the day. And this thing voice came in my head. It was like, you should make an affirmation deck. And I didn't even know what I had used affirmations for the purpose of like bringing my visions to life. And I used them heavily in the process of going from 10,000 a month in sales to 100,000 a month, back then. And I was not just using the affirmation of like, I am selling this much, but I was creating charts and actually tracking how much did I buy today? How much did I sell today? And like, how do I increase these numbers slightly so that the sales numbers keep going up? And what are the profit margins? And I had trackers. I still have trackers like this on my wall, but you can have a core vision, and it's incredible. And you can use I am statements to get your brain to stay there, to reformat your subconscious, but you then still also need to take action in alignment with those visions to bring them to life. And it was like, you need to make an affirmation deck. So I was like, what? Okay, well, I started looking up what they were, and then I was like, okay, well, these are kind of just like positive statements, and I can maybe do this. And I just made one. But what I did was I kind of bridged the gap of the language between like that woo-woo world and like the real world. So I made an affirmation deck that really spoke more to the common person. And, there's a little profanity. There's a lot of deep jokes. It's like more lively than what was out there. And I launched that on Kickstarter, and it did, similar to you. I think my goal was like 3,000 and we raised like 8 or 9, but it was when you're making something that's like coming from your heart, it's like, whoa, this is cool. And then that led to the next one, which did 169,000. And then we did a third one last year, bit different economy. Some things definitely changed, but we still had a lot of success with it. And it was 40,000. So, and now I'm on the verge of doing my fourth deck, which is an Oracle deck. It's an animal spirit deck, which has really been an awesome process. So, I'm building out kind of a deck, like a deck creation business, which I'm really passionate about. And it's so much fun, like the art, the writing, the playing back and forth with our audience and just building the audience that like true fans, it's cool.
That's really cool. So did you make your own like Shopify store, or is it on Amazon, or how did you decide all that kind of part of it?
Yeah. So building a brand is tough. It's a long game. It's hard, but now that I have a lot of the knowledge that I have, and Jason, my co-founder, is really great. We balance each other really well. He's a bit more analytical and I'm a bit more like woo. So we can kind of come together and dial systems in, but, we're on Amazon and we're on Shopify. My Shopify site's just at ragecreate.com, but we basically pre-sale on KickStarter, and then we move the products to the other marketplaces like Amazon and Shopify. And we have supplemental products that we won't do on Kickstarter that will just launch straight through Shopify. I love Shopify. I think what they're doing is fascinating. And also Fair is like I don't know if you've heard of Fair, but it's it's like the new age wholesale, they're building it up to be sort of like the Amazon for wholesale. And I think having a presence there early on, if you're a brand owner is you want to be there for sure. I'm seeing a lot of like analytical things that they're adding. And Walmart is making a huge play right now to get bigger and bigger, especially for resellers. So if you're doing resale and you're not on Walmart, like there's a lot of opportunity there. And that's kind of the flow of things for us, is those mainly Shopify and Amazon. Facebook ads are a big part of that too. So Facebook ads to your Shopify store, you'll also get overflow to Amazon, but it's a journey. Like I've probably sold about 22,000 decks since I started, which, a bestseller book, if they sell 10,000 copies, like that's really, really well. And I'm not talking about like that top 0.001% that sells 1 million copies of a book, but like if a publisher pulls on someone and it's like, I want this to be a home run, they sell 10,000 copies. It's like, it's a home run. So it's really cool to have sold that many copies of the things that we're writing, because, I have people tag me all the time just out in the wild that find our decks places, like in a coffee shop or at their friend's house. And it's like, and we're just getting started. So it's going to be, we're at that point of like, we've been bootstrapping like for like crazy until now. And now we feel like we're on the verge of kind of an explosion, which is going to be really fun.
Yeah, that's amazing. Because if you have that success on Kickstarter, you have an audience that clearly loves what you have and are just ready for the next one to come out. So that's amazing.
Yeah. It's great. Kickstarter is great because you get the emails. Amazon doesn't give you emails of your customers, but these other platforms do. Shopify has been massive for us, because if you run Facebook ads to Shopify and you have a little pop-up on your website for 10% off or whatever, you're going to get like, depending on how much money you're spending on your ads, like you're probably going to get at least 5 emails a day, if not 10, 20, 30. Like you can really optimize that. And then those people, you can start tracking how many of them buy on that first pop-up, how many of them need to be contacted a second time. You get into all the deep email segments of, Klaviyo is what we use for our Shopify site, e-commerce, like, mail outreach, and ConvertKit for our leads list business outreach, which is, I love both of them, essentially the same. And you really do get to start to play with your audience. And we run I did a voting survey the other day where it was like, which of these 3 cards do you like the best? Because I'm designing, we're doing the Oracle cards, and like hundreds of people got on there and commented, and like, that's cool. Like immediately, and so, you build it up and you just look at what you can do today to get just a little bit better. And if you keep doing that on a micro level over the course of years, you can accomplish so much more than you would have ever thought. It's cool.
So do you use Amazon? I'm blanking on the name of it, where Amazon, you send your stuff to Amazon, but then it's fulfilled on your Shopify store by Amazon in the back end?
No. We fulfill through our third-party warehouse in Florida, but we are in FBA as well. So all of our stuff that sells through Amazon goes through FBA, and we fulfill everything from our warehouse that isn't. And we've played around with maybe doing some just merchant fulfilling things, but it's pretty easy when you're running your own products to just keep them in FBA, especially with the type of product that we're using. There might be a little sketchiness with Amazon favoring things that are in FBA, even though they're being sued for that right now. So we've tested out a little bit, and it seems like it sells a little bit more when you're, of course, you pay more fees for them to use the service. But ideally, when we get our own manufacturing facility soon, we'll probably be doing all merchant fulfilling our own products. And we run Amazon ads too, when we can get them to convert well, which sometimes is great. And other times it's like, what happened?
Yeah.
Like, what are you guys doing? So it's just so inconsistent there.
So it's cool because you've got it to where like your hands off, really. Like so you have more free time. How much time do you think a week you spend on the business?
Oh, I spend a lot of time. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Especially right now, it has been periods where like I'm in the van and we're in La La Land, and there's ebbs and flows of being an entrepreneur where like you're going to have a lot of free time, and that's the greatest currency of it. I think the biggest benefit to having a business model like that is like you have the freedom to do what you want when you want. But recently I've actually been choosing to work a lot, and it's because I'm like, we have a merging of a few things happening. I also run probably, I'd say, one of the top 2 largest leads lists for online arbitrage leads on the market. And that happened because we built out a team to supply ourselves with leads when we were doing online arbitrage retailing ourselves. But then when Jason and I both kind of like simultaneously were like, actually, we want to build brands. We didn't want to just napalm the team because it took us like 8 years to build up. So then we just started repurposing them to list and selling those to other sellers, which has been really nice, because it's a good amount of cash flow. And then there's a lot of sellers on there that just constantly send us, feedback of like how 80% of the leads they buy are from our list, and they're doing millions. And I'm like, that's crazy. And I always think like, should I have just kept buying those leads? But then I have to trust my heart, And so we have that happening. And then we were using that cash to bootstrap getting Rage Create really going to self-sustain. And we're at that like splitting right now. So it's a time when Jason and I are both working many hours. I mean, sometimes like a couple of days ago, I did like 18 hours straight. It was so unhealthy, but I liked it. I was in it. And especially because I have this baby coming, it's like, I feel a little bit of that baby fire, but we're kind of merging in. So the answer is more of like, if I wanted to just like check out right now and go for 5 days and do something, I could, but I'm so eager to like build this and really make it work. And so I don't, but there has been times where, like I was working like, 4 hours every 3 days. I would check in for a couple hours and then bounce. But we have 28 team members on our leads team, and a lot of that's fully automated. Yeah, we have a really incredible manager, and all of the hiring and training is automated. The systems, like it's really, really cool, the things that we've built over time. And if you do that, then you can focus on the things that really light you up. Like for me, it's writing. It's like writing these projects. It's designing the projects. It's getting into like the launching of them on KickStarter and where that can build out. So, and there's a lot of other cool projects I'm working on too. We don't need to talk about yet.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, okay. Now, where has your favorite place been that you've traveled to, or a couple? You can pick a couple that having this online business allowed you to do that.
I really, really love Uganda, or Uganda. If you're there, they'll correct you. I started working with a school out there in 2017, probably. I met some woman in a winery, and she's like, I'm going to Uganda. Do you want to go? And I was like, are you serious? Like, because I will. And I did. And she's like, you know how many people I've told that to and no one has ever come, and you just came on the whim? I'm like, I designed my life to be that way, And so I've spent some time working with an organization. It's really like, it's an orphanage that this amazing retired Navy nurse started back probably 10 years ago now. And it's grown now to about 500 children that are really they can't afford to be in the government schools, and they're taken off the streets and like giving education and food for their families. And it's not that I feel like I'm going there and really helping them, but it's more like I'm there, and it's taught me everything about life. And I've developed this kind of symbiotic love with the culture of that space and being there. And I ended up working on these website projects to build out these big sponsorship programs for the kids at the school and stuff like that. So that's one thing that's like massively impacted my life that I've found I've just melted, it's melted my heart over and over again. And then I really have had, oh man, there's so many cool places out there. I love Thailand. I love northern Thailand. Actually all of Thailand is incredible. And it's really easy to kind of like be a nomadic person out there hopping around, and it's just, there's a lot of it. I really love Nicaragua. I love Costa Rica. I love Mexico. I mean, there's so many places, I could go on. I think for anyone thinking about traveling, like, do it. And my friend Jason Moore, who runs the Zero to Travel podcast, and he's kind of the person I started learning from 10 years ago, and helped me get over the fear of, like, if you're in the States, all they do is pump fear of how dangerous it is to go to other countries. But then you go to the other countries and you're like, this is paradise. Like, this is amazing, And of course there's bad and good everywhere. But if you're aware of your surroundings and what you're doing, like, it will completely change your life. You will meet people and cultures, and it'll just completely change your life path in ways that I could never put into words,
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I don't know why, not all Americans, but it does seem to be a big thing that people don't travel, to the fact they don't even travel out of their state. Like, some people never leave the state they were born in. And there's just so much out there that you realize, just you learn, and you just get like an appreciation. Like, everything's a lot slower. We are crazy here, and everything's fast. And it's just like nice and relaxing and slower, and it's just a great experience to travel. So I highly recommend. I think that's one thing the Mormons got right, is they send their kids out to see the world. And I think everyone should do that.
I was on a job site before I quit my job, and there were these guys up on a bridge deck, and they would piss in their bottles and throw them down at us, like, just like until they would explode all over your feet. And that happened. I was just like, God, how did I get here? It's like that Talking Heads song was in my head. Like, how did I get here? And then I basically started like bringing that dream into my, like, speaking, like, I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to leave this place. I'm going to move. And I started to actually believe it, and then take action to make it real. And then it became reality. And that happens over and over and over again in life, because I do think we're constantly creating our reality. But I remember one person in particular, when I was leaving, finally, I was like, I'm moving to Oregon, man. I love it out there. And he was like, Oregon? Ain't even the terrorist out there? And I was like, what? He goes, that's where the Taliban live, in Oregon. And I was just like, the guy had never been out of his small town, and he drank 30 Coca-Colas a day, and he had no teeth, and he was like 30 years old, and it was terrifying. And there's signs in life there's signs everywhere if you pay attention. Like, you're right. If you don't get out of your little box.
Yeah. Yep. It's amazing. Just traveling the US, like, I know you have also, that is really eye-opening, and seeing where, a little bit of where people come from and why maybe they believe what they believe, but then getting out of the country. I mean, I want to do more of it. I have not done enough of it. It just is, like you said, it's just, you get a better sense of yourself and the world at large, because I think we forget there's a whole world out there of other people.
Yeah. Yes.
And I'm a big fan of, also, like you're talking about, like, meditating and putting it out there, like your intentions and manifesting stuff and talking to yourself. One of my favorite books that I talk about all the time that really changed me was, I think you say it, Jen Sincero, but You Are a Badass at Making Money.
Oh, that's a great book.
Those are like the most, like, it just, like,
the Making Money one is really good.
Yeah. It really is. And it helped me build my Your Selling Guide stuff. Like, it really helped me put focus in, like, why we think talking about money is bad, and like all these different things.
Now that you mention that I was reading that book when I started doing the leads list, because I was like, what am I doing now? Like, am I going to napalm everything and file bankruptcy? Like, what am I doing? And then I read that book, and then I started getting ideas, and then we launched our leads list. And, now we have 6 full lists, and like, it's a cool amount of revenue. Like, it's a good thing happening. And it was, now that you mentioned that, it's crazy that was the book I was reading.
Yeah. It's a great book.
Great
I've read it like
storyteller.
3 or 4 times. And then I think we were in North Carolina, actually. She was doing a book signing, and we drove like an hour to go to her book signing. And that's the only one I've ever been to. And so if you guys haven't read it or listened to it, because she also does read it. I've done both multiple times. Yeah. It's a great book.
It's a similar, she writes like she talks. So that's the same thing that I try to do, and why our decks have been so successful, I think, because it's that type of voice. Her voice is so familiar. When you read her books, you feel like she's sitting next to you, having a glass of wine and talking to you. And that's always what's been close. Those are the types of books that move me. And I kind of model I'm writing a book right now on abundance, which is similar to her one about making money. And like, that process has been parallel. So full circle.
Yeah. I'm sure you've read a lot of books. Like you kind of realize they're all kind of saying similar things, but when you find an author or someone you resonate, like talks like you and like thinks like you, it hits home more. Yeah. And I think that's what it was for her specifically. But yeah.
One I'm really into right now, if you're like into metaphysics and law of assumption stuff, Neville Goddard. If you haven't read any Neville Goddard, it's incredible. He's like, basically, he was a mystic from the early 1900s. Wayne Dyer and some of these, Joe Dispenza, like, they all learned from Neville. And Neville, he was using, he has about 14 books. So they're all like small books, but you can buy the whole collection in one. But what he does is he breaks down all of these different philosophical texts from the Bible into the law of attraction and assumption. So he's basically showing you how that book is actually just you creating your own reality. And it'll give you goosebumps. Every one, it's just like, the theme is become the feeling of your wish fulfilled, which is something that I've been doing for 10 years and why I keep experiencing, this manifestation of my goals over and over again. It's because I sit in meditation and I feel myself as the person I'm becoming. Who's around me? What am I drinking? Like, who am I talking to? What are my feet? Like, am I walking around barefoot in the grass? Like, and then I can envision myself as that person, thinking back to now. Like, it gets really deep. There's a lot of practices there, but these are the things that release all of the fears and blockages in the subconscious and actually allow the manifestation seeds to start to grow. And it's a deep thing. You should check out Neville Goddard for sure.
I'm going to. I read a lot of books, so I'm always open to suggestions. Yeah.
So good. Yeah.
So normally I would ask, like, okay, what's one thing you would recommend to a seller? But I have a different question for you. For someone who's just in the rat race and feeling stuck or whatever that looks like for them, what would you suggest something they can do either today or this week to kind of like get themselves free of that burden?
Okay. Yeah. The first step is to completely like forgive yourself for having such a high standard of yourself, which is a benefit, but like loving yourself is a lifelong journey, but it starts with just like letting go of everything you think you need to be and accepting that this is beautiful exactly how it is. And then I think the most simple way to do this is you could get a stack of note cards and probably write these out in a series. But the way that I did it initially, and this is something that I learned from people I interviewed over and over again, they were all giving me this version, like in just their own way, but it was the exact same version. It was at the very top, you create what your core values are in life. And these can shift over time, but mainly like if you dial into your heart and you want to know what your core values are, for me, it could be like, one of your core values could be, I want to be free, I want my time to be free so I can make decisions for myself when I want, wherever I want, right? And so like freedom of time is a huge form of abundance. So I want to live every day like that, where I can wake up and be like, And then a lot of people's minds after that will be like, well, you can only do that if you have a lot of money. And so you could also add a core value in there as like, you know, I am debt free and I am financially stable. That could be a core value in a way. But what does the essence of that mean? And if you get into the essence, it's just the freedom to do what you want every day anyway. So if you take the thought of like not having enough money away from it and just focus on the feeling of being free every single day, that would be a core value that you would want to put down. And then, so I'll just stick with that one core value for now. There's many different ones out there, right? It could be like, I want to be like a secure provider for my family. I want to create generational wealth for my family. Like I want to be light and happy and free and spending time, you know, as much time as I can outdoors. Like these can all be core values. Underneath that, you're going to have long-term goals. And underneath that, you're going to have short-term goals. And then underneath that, you're going to have daily actions. So the note cards I was talking about earlier, I write down 2 things I'm going to do that day that would have the highest impact towards aligning with my short-term goals, which is going to be probably like a 90-day period. That's how I focus short-term. But again, everybody's different. So you have to figure out what works for you. But for me, it works great to do 90 or 100 days is really easy because you can track every day by 1%. So let's say your short-term goals are 100 days. Your long-term goals are kind of like that year length, maybe anything over 100 days, but also not a core value. And then your core values, and they all have to align with each other. You can't have like intentions and you can't be paying attention to something that isn't an intention and expect it to like line up for you. So if you can understand what your core values are, that essence that you want to represent in life, that person that you want to be, that spirit, and then you can look at a piece of paper and remember what your long-term goal is and why you're doing it. So like also write down why. Like, why is this your long-term goal? And the answer to that is usually in your core value because of this core value, right? Why is this my short-term goal? But if you make sure that they're all in alignment, then all you have to do is wake up every morning. And I know people have different lives and times and kids and work and stuff like that. I make time, you know, like I get up at 3:00 and I make time to sit for, it doesn't even take that long. 10 minutes, you do 5 minutes of breathing, you get a note card out, you write down 2 things you're going to do that day in alignment with your core vision. Actually it's short-term vision, long-term vision, and core visions. So if you know you're doing something every day that's in alignment with all those things, then naturally you're going to wake up like 2 years later and many things on that long-term vision goal are going to be real. And your core vision essence is going to be in you. You're going to be living that, you know, in a lot of sense. So I think that that's probably the simplest way to get started. I mean, don't overcomplicate it, you know, like unlearn, don't overcomplicate it. Just stop trying so fucking hard to figure it out because, you know, what if the hokey pokey really is what it's all about? We don't know.
Right. Yeah. I love it. That's amazing. I love it. I'm going to do it myself. So thank you. This has been a really fun and great podcast. So I just want to thank you for coming on, but where?
Yeah. Yeah. So, ragecreate.com is where we have all of our decks. They're on Amazon too and other marketplaces. I'm on Instagram at Heath Fist Pumps. I'm on there intermittently. Sometimes I like throw my phone. I'm like, I'm never doing social media again. But then I realize how much great stuff is on there too. If you learn how to like control yourself, right? Like,
yeah.
It's not the platform that's the problem. It's humans. It's us. It's our attention and where we put it. And so, yeah, at Heath Fist Pumps, it's a handle I made so long ago. It's so funny. I should probably change it. And yeah, heatharmstrong.com. I mean, I guess our leads list is FBA lead lists. Gosh, I'm only saying this because there's somebody else who bought the exact domain with an S on it and they put a page up and it's confusing for people. FBAleadlist.com.
With no S. I'll be dropping the link. So don't.
Yeah. I can send it to you. It'd be a lot easier. And yeah, I don't know. The easiest thing is just to reach out straight to me, you know, like
nice.
It's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And like I said, if you're listening, I will definitely be dropping all of these. I could talk about this stuff all day. So I really appreciate you coming on, and it's been a great episode. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's been synchronistic. So I felt that from the time I started seeing your videos a couple of years ago. That's why I reached out to you. I was like, there's something, I just felt like familiarity, so it's been awesome. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks. As we talked about in the episode, all of the links are below and how you can connect with Heath or check out his decks. Now, I am a huge reader, and you can tell Heath is also. So I'm also going to drop the links to the books we talked about because they really can be life-changing books. And I'm always out there learning and growing myself and bettering myself. Now, Heath reached out to me to be on the podcast, and I want you to reach out also because I love talking to you and just growing my Amazon seller community and entrepreneur community at large. So reach out at podcast@yoursellingguide.com, and I would love to chat with you more. Until next week, happy sourcing.